Hello and welcome to our post-debate breakdown. We just finished the first presidential debate and we're still sober, but we're exhausted from that spectacle, as I'm sure the rest of you are too. And I'm sure that you guys have questions for us to answer, but we're going to break it all down tonight. Be sure to tweet us at hashtag #AskTheBreakdown. I'm Tara Setmayer. This is Rick Wilson. Starting the first half of our discussion, we have our Lincoln Project senior advisors, Stuart Stevens and the Steve Schmidt. Sarah Lenti and Mike Madrid will be joining us a little bit later. We're going to get right into it. There's just so much to unpack, which was thus the delay after the debate for us, because there was a lot. Rick, that was uneventful. Let's break it down.
Donald Trump tonight brought everything that the campaign's Oppo team had dug up and threw it out there at high speed. But I have to say, this was a president who was unhinged. He was undisciplined. He was decompensating. He was throwing everything out that he possibly could throw out there. But at the end of the night, when you're looking at an election that's going to be decided in the suburbs, and while I am a 56-year-old white dude, one thing that someone pointed out to me earlier tonight was, you know what educated women in the suburbs love? A guy who shouts at them constantly and interrupts everything they say, and is a bully and postures and squints and glares and is absolutely out of control all the time. That just says,
Oh, I wrote that down. How did this go over with the suburban housewives who have to deal with the suburban housewives, as Trump called them, that have to deal with unruly 10-year-olds? If their son had ever acted like that in school, they'd be sent to the principal's office and their mothers would be getting a phone call to come pick them up. And they'd be sent to, reform school the way Trump was when he was in elementary school, because he was so freaking unruly. It was unbelievably unpresidential. And Joe Biden said as much. And Chris Wallace was trying to handle it all, and it was a lot. So for those who didn't see it, let's remind them. Let's roll some of the highlights.
What's going on? Take a look at West Virginia, mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well.
There is no
this is
only
not
one.
going
Vice
to
President
end well.
Biden, 5 states have had mail-in ballots for the.
Oh,
this is not going to end well.
The systematic threats. Guys, the back end of this debate, I think we'll bring Steve in. Proud Boys, by the way, is trending on the internet right now. I've been told. We're going to get to that, folks, in just a moment. The end of that debate was a threat to America. It's the same threat he's been making for weeks on end. It's the threat that he will not abide by the outcome of this election unless it's the outcome he wants. I think we ought to bring in Steve and Stuart right away, because I think there's a lot to talk about in this thing. Guys, we've all been to presidential debates. We've all seen them. How do you put this in historical context, Steve?
It's I mean, what a fucking disgrace, right? I mean, the only thing I could think about, people all around the world watched this debate and saw Donald Trump. And I thought, first off, I thought Joe Biden crushed Donald Trump tonight. I thought that he had great moments. I thought he was restrained. I don't know what you're supposed to do when you have an unhinged asshole yelling at you like that, but I thought Biden acquitted himself really, really well in that space. It ended with a threat, but the blustering, the bullying, the rudeness, his unhinged behavior, the lying, the sweaty, falling apart aspect of it, it's just, I'm still trying to process it, other than it's inconceivable to me. And I mean this, and it's inconceivable to me that any normal person could watch him and say, let's give him 4 more years. Just inconceivable to me.
How about you, Stuart? I mean, you've been to this rodeo a few times.
I was really struck in 2000 in the first Bush-Gore debate. Our holding room was next to the Gore people. And we could hear them through the wall, and they thought they won that debate big because they were scoring in on policy points. But Gore came across with his sighing as very condescending. And we were able to spin that, and it's how the public saw it. But I mean, let me tell you, man, I mean, total charmer compared to Trump tonight. I mean, that's what people are going to remember. This is a guy you wouldn't sit next to on a plane. I mean, not even for a short flight. This is, the premise of the election we've all agreed upon, I think, is that if the race is about Trump, he loses. And what was this debate about? It was about Donald Trump. I think clearly to the extent they have strategy, and it's always questionable with Trump, was to try to jam this guy up. It's exhausting to have to deal with someone constantly interrupting, and try to get Biden to make some big mistake that they could then take and amplify. Well, that didn't happen. I actually thought Biden got better as we went along. So, my bet is that this is going to show as a big win for Biden. There's a side of us when you watch him that you want him to yell back, and Biden's not doing that. But Biden's playing his game. He's not getting drawn into this. And he's the alternative to Trump. You got 21% right track in the country. Trump is arguing the country's going great. So he gets that 21%. And I think it's going to be, I would predict it's going to have a big, larger than normal post-debate move, and it'll go toward Biden.
I think you're right about that, Stu, that Biden didn't have any major gaffes. Before the debate during the pre-show, I was telling Anthony Scaramucci that I had agita, which is angst. It's an Italian word for angst about Biden's possible performance. And I was very happy with most of what Biden did. There were some areas, like you said, where your instinct is, why didn't you nail Trump on like his taxes? I thought he let him get away with that a little bit too much. He could have nailed him on that. And every time he started to get going, though, it's clear that Biden was well prepared and that he had well prepared rebuttals that were great. When he turned to the screen and talked directly to the American people on a number of issues, every time the more intransigent Trump became, Biden would try to turn it right to the American people. This guy doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about your family. When he talked about COVID and turned it around about one of the most powerful moments of the debate, I thought, when he said, how many people don't have an empty chair at their kitchen table because someone in their family died of COVID because of the failure of Donald Trump. That was excellent. Unfortunately, every time Biden started to get Trump, really dig him on that, Trump just kept interrupting, over talking. And Chris Wallace had to come in and try to settle it. And then a lot of times the tie went to Trump because he would just let him keep talking and Biden didn't continue. So he did that a number of times, but he did not have any major gaps, which was something that I was encouraged by, thank God. And he's definitely not senile, for God's sakes. If anybody was, out of their mind, it was Donald Trump. And not only did he not say anything, did he make a threat to Rick's point about the fairness of the election and accepting the results, he also didn't denounce the Proud Boys, a white supremacist, violent group that's out here acting like vigilantes and intimidating people, and they're just thrilled about it. Can we roll that clip to remind people where he had an opportunity to denounce them and he didn't?
But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared
to
specifically
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would
right
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left.
Yeah, that's George Wallace. That's George Wallace
right
calling.
there.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
that's a callback, guys, to the 2016 election, where it took Donald Trump 2 weeks to denounce David Duke.
That's right.
2 weeks, and he kept going back and forth. Like, I hear he likes me. I don't know him personally. Maybe he does. Maybe I don't know. When he did, he knew exactly who the guy was.
That's right.
I
That was a
think
lie.
it's worse than George Wallace. I mean, George Wallace, unless I'm historically misinformed on this, and I don't mean that facetiously. Were there right-wing militias on the streets in the way
Well,
that there
no.
are intimating violence and and being encouraged? I mean, I think Wallace was even more subtle at some level than Trump is.
Steve, to your point though, some would argue that he was empowering the police, who were agents of the state, to engage in civil rights violations. But to your point, you had the Klan, and that was about it.
Right. No doubt. Right. So he had a terror group, he had a Klan, but we see these militia groups operating, it seems, with impunity in American cities. And I said the last time we were all on together, when we saw some of this in Louisville, someone needs to explain to me what the difference between these groups are and an early version of Trump's SA. I think the analogy is much more 1930s. It's very disturbing to me. He absolutely, when he says, hey, you got to be ready here, it's an intimation of violence. It's a threat, as you pointed out, Rick. It's a threat against the country. And, we've never had a presidential debate for sure that ended with the incumbent president intimating that he's not going to accept the results of the election and threatening the country with violence if he doesn't remain in power. That's incredible.
Right. And what we saw tonight, Donald Trump is the master of the dog whistle. And so he says this thing about the Proud Boys, throws this big piece of red meat out there. Right now, Proud Boys is trending #1 on Twitter. The founder of the Proud Boys, apparently, or one of the founders, just tweeted out how delighted they were. They feel honored. They're standing by for their president. They're ready to take action when he commands. So, he successfully did what he's done before, just like with Charlottesville, just like with the Confederate flags and the Confederate memorials. This man has a cadre out there, and whether it's Steve calls it like a proto SA or what have you, these people are the ones who Donald Trump will justify by this imaginary Antifa monster, and he will go out there and say, well, I guess those Proud Boys had to be there armed up and outside the voting place. I guess they had to be on the street. They are signaling
Rick, they're doing it already.
Oh, I know.
They're doing it already with Kyle
signaling these people.
And Kenosha.
Right. It's radicalization moving into the presidential debate forum.
Kyle Rittenhouse's mother was greeted with applause and a standing fucking ovation at a Republican event in Wisconsin recently. She drove him to that protest. That is correct. And she drove him to that protest that where he decided that he was going to take up arms and be a vigilante and kill 2 people. So this is where the Republican Party is going. And it's unbelievable to me that we have a president of the United States that is activating these people. It is a Cold War turning hot, a cold Civil War possibly turning hot. Hearing these people are listening to Donald Trump like brown shirts, waiting for him to activate them. And that should scare the hell out of everyone. Look at this. Look at this. Donald Trump is giving these people a license to take up arms and shoot and kill their own people in the name of protecting him and what they think is patriotism. This is really, really dangerous. And I hope that the Biden campaign and our law enforcement officials take this seriously. We've already seen people lose their lives.
I thought one of the best moments that Biden had was when he talked about the suburbs, because that really is ground zero for this race. And I think that Trump has completely miscalculated how suburbs like to see themselves now. And a lot of this is voting for someone that you think will represent you in the way you want to be, which is why Trump did well with white grievance. But people in the suburbs don't want to see, they don't want their kids to look at them and think that if somebody moved in next door, was a different ethnicity or different religion, that they would be greeted hostily. That's not, they don't want that. I think it's a monumental blunder. The whole Proud Boys thing, I think, is When the history of this election is going to be written, I think it's going to go down as one of the monumental political miscalculations in modern politics. Yeah.
Like SB
Imagine
is
that.
coming up in the polls there rapidly. So I think let's go ahead and roll that clip we have on this issue.
It's like
He wouldn't know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
raised.
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was
So much
raised
better
in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and/or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And
That was an excellent answer. Excellent answer.
I think that
by
answer
Joe
was
Biden.
spot on. By the way,
And
I
you
just
know
had
what?
someone tell me. Go ahead, Sarah. Tara, go.
Now, I was just going to say that, as I'm biracial, and I grew up in the suburbs in a blue collar household in Bergen County, New Jersey. And you know what? The country is beginning to look more and more like me. You see more and more interracial families. You see more and more integrated communities. To Joe Biden's point, that is the future of this country. And it is not 1950 anymore. It is not the 1930s. It's not freaking Jim Crow anymore, where people of color couldn't get home loans and mortgages to move into the suburbs, or we had to have a Supreme Court, civil rights laws and things passed in this country so that people who look like me could have equal access to living in good communities, to go to good schools and get good jobs and get those loans. And I think that message resonates with a lot of the people in this country. It doesn't resonate with the white supremacists and the nationalists and the people who are afraid of people of color, or the demographics changing in this country. It may not resonate with them, but they are the minority, and they are not the majority of this country, the people who feel like that. So I thought that was an excellent answer by Joe Biden. And to turn it around and talk about COVID and how that's impacting the suburbs, because it was a brilliant way to remind those people that Donald Trump's failure is killing those people in the suburbs. So I thought that was one of the best moments for Joe Biden tonight.
I think you can tell something by the people that are praising Trump. Who else is praising Trump tonight on his unhinged performance? He's got the Proud Boys. And I think that tells you a lot. And there you go. You have some fascistic iconography on the new shoulder patch for the kit that they'll be wearing to a state capitol near you pretty soon. I do think one thing that deserves mentioning is always one of my favorite Trump things and it never gets called out. And so I'd like to talk about it. They'll not talk about this on any other network tonight. But when he started talking about the forest people, and he started talking about the people that he talked to and the forest people, and about, apparently, I didn't know this, but California, I lived in California for a long time without knowing that California's trees are a lot more combustible than the flame retardant European trees from the forest, which are immaculately groomed where the forest people are. And I'm just wondering, is I'd like to challenge somebody out there, could be anyone, someone watching, intrepid Twitter reporter, anybody at all. I want to get to the bottom of this. First off, right, there are a couple places you can stay in America, where you can go stay in a treehouse for a weekend. But I always thought it was a good idea ever since the Star Wars movies. I thought the Ewoks looked like happy people. They lived in trees. So I just want to know.
Filmed in California. Redwood trees.
Where are the forest people? How do you get there? How are they handling COVID? Are
they
kids
elven Americans?
Right. What's happening? But I want to know more about the forest people, the leader of them. that Trump talked to.
One movement I think the Lincoln Party is to get behind is giving the moderator in the next debate the right to turn off mics.
Absolutely.
Because
Stuart,
that's the
actually, I
only way to
disagree
deal
with
with
that. Actually, I disagree with
Okay.
that. I think we have to give the moderator in the next debate shock collars, like they use with wild dogs.
There's no thinking that.
Yeah, but you can still hear them. You can still hear them with the shock collars on.
I think the moderator needs a taser.
Oh my gosh. Listen, Chris Wallace had an impossible task tonight. I thought that he did the best he could do in the circumstances. Like I said before, I thought that he did go after Trump to try to chastise him like a child. I mean, it was literally like an unruly child. But
Every
oftentimes
parent has seen that look.
Yes, absolutely.
No.
And I think that Biden came out sometimes because he lost the time, and that he would, just as he was getting good, he would lose the momentum of his rebuttal. But all I know is that we know who the next moderators are. They're not going to be able to handle this. No one else who is slated to be a moderator has the same tenacity and the same assertiveness that Chris Wallace has. And I just have no idea how they're going to handle this moving forward. If we thought this was a shit show, the next two are going to be 10 times worse. But I think we have a clip I think that we want to show of Trump's behavior.
Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate.
I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a big chunk of Obama. That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst part of Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris, that was the worst part of Obama.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like
and we will protect people with
President, I'm the moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your question.
That was the first 10 minutes of the debate, and it was so much worse after that.
All right, let me look. When is the next presidential debate? When is the next presidential debate?
2 weeks.
22nd.
15.
Right. So here's what I think is going to happen, right? You never want to make predictions, but I'm going to put myself out there. I think the ground's going to move. I think the rumble we hear off in the distance is the sound of poll numbers moving. I think that every senator in a close race out there tonight is like, holy shit. I think that, the Trump campaign is on Air Force One flying back. They'll be all telling him what a great job he did, how powerful, how strong he showed them on all this stuff. But, reality is going to begin to sink in here over the next 24 to 48 hours. And I think the bottom's going to fall out for him politically. And I don't think there's a lot of elasticity in this race at all to begin with. So I don't think that there's a lot of room to move, but it's going to move a couple of points. His performance was that bad. And
Steve,
and then that raises the question for Biden, in my view. Do you even do debates 2 and 3? You look at the performance.
That's interesting.
What a, I would.
That's interesting.
I don't know. I mean, it's just such a disgrace.
Stu and Steve, can you guys imagine if we had a dial group running in a focus group, what people would be doing during that debate?
I wonder, Frank
particularly,
Luntz does that.
We used to ask the question.
I would be curious to see what Frank Luntz's focus group says, because he always does that during the dials, Frank Luntz. So I'd be curious to see the responses, especially from women. Go ahead, Stu. Sorry.
Well, go ahead, Stu.
No, I was going to say, we used to ask the question, who would you like to have a beer with? Who's more likable? And Trump just came across as tremendously unlikable.
But that was the same in 2016, though, Stuart, and people still voted for him. You know what I mean?
Hillary,
the likable, unlikable is.
The difference is you've had to live with it for 4 years.
That's true.
Guys, wait. In Frank Luntz's focus groups tonight, Ruthie from Pennsylvania said she was undecided coming in, but is now voting for Biden. She described Trump as behaving like a crackhead.
Crackhead is an interesting term, but okay. I told you.
Is crackhead where you want to end up after a debate? No. Tara, Stuart and I need to briefly drop off, but we'll be back. We're going to bring in Mike Madrid here in a moment if the control room has that up and running.
Well, while the control room
Matt,
while they get that together, we'll bid you adieu for now, and
we'll
welcome
be
you
right
back when you
back.
guys are finished. We got it from here until you guys come back. To Steve's point about the bottom falling out. Listen, Donald Trump is running record deficits right now with the gender gap with women. The ABC poll that just came out 2 days ago showed record
Hi, guys.
gender deficits with
Oh,
Biden
please. I'm almost
and
here.
Trump. So I think that after tonight's debate, you're going to see the numbers with women get worse. There is no way he improves that. There's just no way after that performance. Steve?
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, his comportment was just complete throughout the entirety of this debate from the first moment. I mean, he was dishonest throughout it. He was personal. He was nasty. He was corrupt. He was incoherent. He was all the things we know Trump is to be. And I think that as the debate progressed, Biden had good moments in this debate. He had good moments on Trump's desecration of our war dead in the military. Thought that was a spectacular moment for Biden. He had a spectacular moment talking about COVID when he talked about the empty chairs and he talked about the loss in this country. But I think that Donald Trump, it's funny when you meet Trump for the first time, and I've only met him twice.
Because you were trying to get a job, right? Right, Steve?
Yeah, right.
No, he wasn't. That's a joke, folks. It's a joke.
No truth that he's superficially charming, right? He's a salesman, right? He's a different guy in private, but you hear people say, "What a mean-spirited, bullying asshole he is," right? Knows everything, and that's what you saw tonight, and that's exactly what he is. That's how he conducts himself in the Oval Office. That's how he conducts himself in the White House. That lack of control, that lack of ability to listen, his lack of personal control is why we have 200,000 dead people in this country. And Joe Biden said it perfectly. It's because of who you are.
That's right.
And
Let's
Trump
actually
will
roll
never
that.
change.
Let's roll that clip. Joe Biden made a really, really powerful point on that and COVID and its impact on everyday Americans.
Spoke to the scientists that are in charge. By the way, they will have the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish. Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Mr. President?
That sent chills down my spine, right?
Well, I thought the clip that immediately follows that was the most interesting psychological moment of the debate. And I'd love it if we could bring that clip up when he says that wasn't smart, and Trump reacts to that viscerally, angrily, with rage in his eyes that Joe Biden has dared to suggest that Trump has acted in a way that wasn't smart, that triggered him, and Trump started to spiral out of control. And I think Wallace threw him a lifeline through the interruption. And there are moments in a debate where you're interrupting and you're rude and you can't hear anything, where the moderator must interrupt. And I don't think Wallace did a particularly good job at that. There are other moments in the debate where a candidate is in the process of revealing themselves, right?
Yep.
And Trump was in that moment revealing himself in a way right on the edge of what we all know this guy to be, and Wallace let him out of let him out
Yep.
of the shooting gallery on this. But I think
we have the clip. We have the clip, Steve. Let's play it. We have the clip.
Let's play it. Let's watch this. This is incredible.
Questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call them.
The head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
he said
Dr.
it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be after that.
When it's generally available.
Well, we're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up legit.
That was actually a different clip, but that was another moment that was starting to get into Trump not listening to the experts. You know, that he knows better. Again, he used the tactic of interrupting, and throwing everyone off the subject at hand to distract from the fact that Chris Wallace was nailing him on the fact that he wasn't being consistent with the experts who are trying to save American lives and what's in their best interest. What did you think about that segment of it? We're going to see if we can pull up what Steve was talking about before.
I mean,
go ahead.
What's amazing about it, right, is you're sitting back there and, you know, everybody is watching this, you know, as we have as a general proposition, right? We're all in our own bubbles, right? You're sitting there and watching it. You know, 6-7 months into this, him talking about, no, we'll have the vaccine by November 1st, right?
Yeah.
But your experts, Mr. President, tell you that's not going to happen. No. It's going to be by November 1st.
They're wrong.
And I thought it was a really effective moment when the vice president laughs, you know, with his head down, shaking his head in disbelief, which is, I don't know what else you're supposed to do as a human being when you hear the nonstop nonsense, but then looking into the camera and ultimately saying, right, that you believe this guy? You know, the guy that told you to inject Lysol and disinfectant, the guy who told you it would all go away, that it would disappear, that it was a hoax, it was a Democratic hoax, who lied to the country 120 times. And because of that lie, and I wish the vice president had said what the lie is. It's the most lethal lie in American history. And it is.
Yep.
It is. The suffering the guy has caused in 4 years, and it's amazing to sit and watch Donald Trump assert that he's done a good job as president. I mean, that's the premise he's running on. 4 more years. I've done great. I've done things in 47 months that no one's ever been able to do, which is right. You know, we've never been more precariously perched as a country with regard to the status of our democracy and our republic. No one else has ever presided over a disaster like this. No one else has lied to the country 27,000 times. There are, as our friend Stuart Stevens says, there are more unemployed people on this day, on this September 29th in American history than there is on any other September 29th since July 4th, 1776. And Donald Trump is the person who's responsible for that. It's Donald Trump's economy. And everything that the guy says, everything that he asserts is just BS. It's not true. It's nonstop lying. And you look then at the crazy people in his echo chamber. Crazy Laura Ingraham at Fox News puts a tweet out saying, I can't believe how much Joe Biden was interrupting tonight.
I saw that.
It's just insane.
The propaganda is strong with those people. It's unreal how they continue to try and hurl the insults at everyone else with in opposition to what Donald Trump is actually doing. It's unbelievable. They do it all the time. You had Giuliani running around last night on Fox News talking about Biden being on enhanced drugs like Adderall. Hello, Donald Trump. I mean, it's unbelievable. There's really no limit to their duplicity on this. To your other point, before we bring in Sarah Lenti, we have another clip of how Biden characterized and reacted to a lot of Donald Trump's antics. He did. He just like closed his eyes. He shook his head. He called him a clown a couple times. He called him a liar. He looked at when he looked at the camera and was like, this guy, like, and he said that it was unpresidential how he was behaving. I mean, Biden went down the list at many times where he just got so frustrated with Donald Trump that he finally just told him to shut up. Roll the clip.
You're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question.
Why wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
The question is, the question is,
Justice, radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
Who's on your list?
Right. Gentlemen, I think
this
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the court.
We have
not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really
I think Joe Biden was America at that point, where it's like, will this guy just shut up and let somebody else talk, because he's talking gibberish. I was concerned though that Biden was going to continue to kind of lose it a little bit and get in the mud too much with Trump with doing that, when he called him a clown and all that. I was like, yeah, call him for what he is, but stay a little bit above the fray. You can still be a gentleman and insult. But when he started to say this is unpresidential, he's a liar. You believe this guy? This is, that was the right tone, I thought. And I'm glad that Biden was able to get some of those shots in, because you needed to point it out. He had to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, as you said, and you as they watch the debate tapes with the vice president, for the next one, and you get a sense of what Trump's going to do and who he's going to be, is to essentially to be ready for the moment to be able to turn with him. You act like this because you are losing. You're acting like this because you're a failure. You're lying because you lack self-control and you lack achievement. I do think that, if I have some unsolicited advice to the Biden campaign, is sit down and watch this with a psychiatrist. Watch it with someone who profiles people who have Trump's afflictions, and know how to strike back at him. I think that's an important thing. And it's what we were talking about. And I know one of the things we'll be talking about tomorrow morning at the Lincoln Project is how unhinged he got when Biden used that word smart. So everybody look for that angle in some ads coming to a market near you. You saw Trump's rage on that front for sure.
You know what, Steve? It was clear to me that the Biden campaign did have some of those rebuttals ready. They did, because he started to do it. You heard him start to go down that road. And then Trump would overtalk him, interrupt him, and then Biden would lose the momentum of the zinger because of the back and forth between Chris Wallace and Trump. So I think they can definitely, you're right, they could definitely benefit from sitting down with a psychologist, analyzing what triggers Trump and what zingers were starting to work. And Biden has to make sure that if that happens again, if they in fact debate again, that he knows how to get back to it. Go back to it. Don't let it get lost and drowned out in the back and forth. When it's his turn to speak again, you go right back to it. And I think that's what he was trying to do when he would turn to the camera and start to speak to the American people directly. But then Chris Wallace either wouldn't let him finish, which is the example you were talking about where he wasn't doing things well, or Trump would just keep talking, and then Biden either just decided to abandon it. And I hope that people saw that and saw where he was going with it. Are we ready to bring in Sarah?
Who wouldn't be ready to bring
Okay,
in
great.
Sarah?
Great. Well, it wasn't her. It was her. It was technical. It was technical. Sarah's always ready to go. All right, let's bring in Sarah Lenti and Mike Madrid to join our conversation in our post-debate analysis. The first presidential debate between Biden and Donald Trump. It was a doozy, and there's lots to talk about. Sarah, let's start with you. You're a mom. You're a suburban mom, not a suburban housewife, but a suburban mom.
Yep.
What was your
Urban
reaction?
suburban.
That's right, urban suburban. You're isn't there? There's a word for exurban, right?
Yeah.
What was your reaction to the debate tonight? What stood out the most to you?
Several things. I thought that Biden looked good. I thought, in terms of you can't argue where he is mentally, physically, or temperamentally. I thought he did an incredible job when he spoke about COVID and Trump's lack of leadership. I thought he did great with the voter integrity question. He spelled out what Americans need to do and he looked directly at them. You juxtapose that to the president immediately when they cut to him. And he's first talked about himself and how, the election and the transition, it had nothing to do with voter integrity. And then, Biden also answered the really tough questions. He was asked about the rule of law. He was asked about violence, and he answered the question directly. And then he answered the question when they asked him about, what will happen if the election isn't, decided? And he said he would wait to certify. So I think he did what he needed to do. And then I think he also killed it with respect to demeanor. So the president acted like a toddler tonight. I have two 5-year-olds. I mean, his behavior was worse than theirs on a good day, on a good bad day. And then there were those moments where the president kept talking over him, and he would just, and particularly when he was talking about Beau and Hunter, and Biden just closed his eyes and he was like waiting. It was hard to watch, but at the same time, you knew he was just internalizing it. He was holding it together. I thought he did an incredibly good job, again, temperamentally and looking as a president should.
I agree. Mike Madrid?
Yeah, look, I'm struggling and I'm conflicted between whether I'm more sad for my country or more angry for my children. This was very difficult to watch. And I like Steve Schmidt just said, I'm not sure that we're worthy of this anymore because this was not a debate, this was a spectacle. And to continue to do this, I don't know if it has any civic value or any civic virtue in this. I think it continues to debase the process that we're unfortunately engaged in, and to keep entreating this in front of the American people, I don't know that it serves much of a purpose, nor does it even, I think, rise to the caliber of trying to do the tit for tat or debating or discussing who won. What did anybody win here? And look, I'm not trying to bring this down to a really
No, I think
sad
you represent
level,
a lot of people.
but
I think
yeah,
you
it was
represent a
disgusting.
lot of
This was
people.
disgusting. This was not a debate,
He,
and we need to stop saying that it was. This was not a
and
discussion. This was a spectacle. And what
well,
the purpose of the presidential debate and commissions was never designed for a period of time in American history where spectacle supplanted a policy discussion. There's an appropriate
Yeah.
time and a place for disagreement and discussion on issues. But I think it's incumbent upon us, and look, we do this as a Lincoln Project, is call it out for what it is. But this was not a debate, and there will not be 2 more debates. And we need to quit acting like they are, because they're not. They're not debates.
can I also say something? The president was giving
Yeah.
instructions tonight. He told a white supremacist organization to stand back and stand by, and then he told his supporters to go protect the polls or there would be consequences. He was giving instructions.
Yeah.
Scary
Oh, no, I mean,
instructions, and for sure.
he was threatening the country. He was threatening the country.
Yep.
I mean, make no mistake about that. Let's call it what it is. I do think, I agree with Mike, right, on that. It is disgraceful. It's embarrassing. I have the same, I have the same emotions for my kids, but I think we have to be careful because we don't want to, the spectacle was all Trump. There was nothing that Biden did that affronted the dignity of his previous office, of the office that he's aspiring to occupy. He didn't divide the country. I think that everybody near Trump, is gonna get muddy to some degree. But the spectacle and the disgrace in this was all Trump's. I'm trying to think here, if it's fair to be critical of Chris Wallace, for losing control of this, if it's even controllable. But I'll tell you this much. I think the moderators for the next debates are out of their minds if they'll agree to go do it without an off switch for Trump's microphone. They're crazy too, because they'll look like fools.
Yeah, it's
And look, let me be clear about this. I mean, I'm in agreement with you, Steve. I'm not suggesting that Biden was unseemly at all. I don't know that it behooves the American people or even the office of the presidency to engage what we all know is coming. I think that we are positioned, hopefully, for a time of healing to move beyond this, a time when we can restore some dignity, not just to the Oval Office, but to American civic life. And I commend him for standing in there and taking it. I don't know if I would have had the temerity or the temperament to stand in there and have my son who lost his life be talked about that way, or a son who's struggling with addiction be dealt with that way. He was a consummate gentleman, a consummate statesman, and I credit him for that. But I also think that the campaign needs to think really long and hard about not engaging in this because it validates the spectacle. And there's the Presidential Commission on Debates. This is a black eye for them too. This does not look good. Not just because Wallace was unable to control it. Nobody can control it, the way Tara said. And it's only going to get worse. That's by design by this guy.
I would rather see Trump do that again and again, though. I'd rather see him do it two more times and have Biden continue to look like the leader.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they're going to. This is an interesting debate, and I guarantee you that the Biden campaign is having that discussion. I just don't know how that comes across, because then Fox is going to, and Fox and all those crazies are going to say that Biden's a coward and he doesn't want to, he's running away from Trump because Trump is so strong and mighty. So there's downsides to that too. Deciding that this is such a spectacle, we're not going to do it anymore. I don't know if the high road wins necessarily here, because I think, like you said, Sarah, there are a lot of people that still want to see how they're going to handle it. I don't know. It's going to be a challenge moving forward, no matter what. I just want to go back to something that you brought up, Mike. The moment where, and I don't know if we have a clip on this or not, I don't think we do, but the moment when Biden started to get passionate about Trump insulting the military, I was really glad to see that Biden brought up the fact that there were, Russian bounties on our military men and women over there in Afghanistan, and Trump didn't do shit about it. When he started to talk about his son serving honorably, Beau Biden serving honorably over there and winning the Bronze Star. And then, of course, Trump started to go after Hunter. That exchange was probably one of the most despicable exchanges that we will ever witness in presidential debate history. Donald Trump going after, disgracing Beau Biden's service and memory, and everyone else who has served in the military, calling them suckers and losers, and then pivoting to attacking Hunter Biden again, talking about his drug use and his, dismissal from the military because of it. Biden started to have a really powerful answer that, again, Trump interrupted, and Chris Wallace did not allow Biden to finish. But this is the tactic that I had been demanding that Biden do a year ago. Once we saw that Hunter Biden was going to become a fixture here and an attack by the Trump people, that Biden needed to go straight to the heart of it, embrace it. Yes, my son had a drug problem, just like millions of other Americans and families that have suffered through this, and he overcame it. And we as a family helped him overcome that, and I'm proud of my son. I was so glad to hear Biden do that, because guess what? And opioid problems and overdoses are ravaging Trump country. This is something that a lot of families in this country can relate to. And for Donald Trump to be so heartless and be so visceral about this and use that, I think, is an affront to a lot of families that deal with that at home. And Joe Biden tried at least to get that out, and the point that at least he got some of it out I don't know if it was lost on people because of the overtalk, but Biden needs to continue to do that. The one thing he should have done, though, concerning Hunter, I don't know why he didn't say this. Why didn't he just say, my son, Hunter Biden, is not running for the presidency? You are, and I am. Stop attacking my son, who is not running for the office of the presidency, to distract away from your failures. That's all he had to say. My son's not running for the presidency. Go ahead,
And
Steve.
my son will never, ever work in the White House like
Right.
your
I
grifter
tweeted that.
children do, who are making
That's right.
$100 million a year, right? When you
That's
look
right.
at Jared and Ivanka. And look, I just want to say something, is we are all of us works in progress. And to see Donald Trump attack Hunter Biden in that way on an addiction is so sick, given the fact that Trump lost his own brother to addiction, number one, that Hunter Biden is doing well. And I'm going to say it. His son is all over television since the Republican National Convention. And if that kid isn't wasted out of his mind, excuse me, he's not a kid. If that man, Donald Trump Jr., isn't wasted out of his mind, I don't know what wasted out of your mind looks like. He clearly looks like to me that he's got a serious substance abuse problem. And I want to say something else. If you want to talk about families, I think it's a legitimate issue because I saw that disgraceful Trump family walk in from Kimberly Guilfoyle and Eric's wife, who's on the campaign payroll, and Kimberly, who's on the campaign payroll, and who knows how much money they're getting off the campaign payroll. Every one of them has benefited and fed at the taxpayer trough like pigs for the last 3.5 years. They are a stain on the White House, on our country, on our polity, on our civic institutions. They are a disgraceful family. How dare he sit up there and attack this good American family like that?
That's
no
right.
family's perfect. Every family has problems, but they want this fight. Let me tell you, we look forward in this organization of bringing it to them.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that, Steve, because sitting there, I was screaming at the television. And, I've had the opportunity to have interactions closely with the Biden family and watched that family. And, that is a close-knit family. They love each other. And like you said, many families have imperfections. And they are closer to what an average American family looks like than anything the Trumps have ever done. This idea that somehow Hunter Biden is some boogeyman that's done all this stuff, it's just to distract from all of the despicable, disgusting things that the Trump family is doing, has done, and it's there for generations, all the way back to his father and grandfather who ran away from military service, his grandfather in Germany, and then his father here, that they've never served anyone in their lives. They have no idea what it's like to be a public servant, where the Biden family, every one of them has served, they've been public servants at some point in their lives. So there is no comparison, and I'm glad that we're going to take the gloves off on that because the American people need to see the comparison. The contrast could not be any starker. Sarah, you want to weigh in? Sarah Lenti, can you hear me?
Yeah, I was just going to say that moment when Vice President Biden started to talk about, Beau, and it seemed like didn't know who he was talking about. That was like enriching and disgraceful. I knew Beau when he was the Attorney General of Delaware, and what a gentleman, what a wise AG he was, and he served our country. And Biden used the words losers and suckers, and the president was just like, I just thought that spoke volumes to me.
Unfortunately, Sarah's connection is a little choppy. Sarah's connection is a little choppy, but from
She-
what I heard, she was saying that Bo Biden was a gentleman, and that's true. And in the pre-show, I said that this debate was going to be between the hustler and the gentleman, and that is exactly what we saw, and that's exactly the choice that the American people have. And it was disgraceful to see Donald Trump go after the Biden sons that way. And I hope that Joe Biden continues to show that same passion moving forward when that comes up, because I think that turns people off, especially women like Sarah and that demographic, which I feel is going to make the difference in this election in many of the swing states. Mike Madrid, do you agree with that?
I actually think it's a bigger problem than that. I don't think this is about women or women's issues or how offended women are anymore. I think you need to be offended as a human being by this. I think you
Oh,
need to
for
be offended
sure.
as an American. You need to be offended as an American by this. Look, for the last week, we've seen a deterioration of blue collar, non college educated white males. So the core Trump constituency moving away from him. I think this hurts him even further if we're talking about just crass, political reactions. But look, this offends the sensibilities. This is not about suburban women anymore. And I know we've been talking about that and communicating to that demographic for the better part of a year. This is so much bigger than that now. This is about the very core of the American identity. And we need to start looking at it that way and reacting to it that way and understanding it that way and putting it in perspective. What I will also say is this. I think Steve Schmidt is again right that we need to, as a Lincoln Project, start prosecuting the case against Donald Trump at the level he is at. You don't get to choose where your opposition is going to attack, but if he's going to go below you, then you meet him where he is at. You don't try to beat him with virtue when your opponent has none. You don't try to be, have some semblance of any sort of virtue when your opponent is shameless. And I think that there are certain things that Joe Biden cannot do and perhaps should not do politically. But I'm more committed now than ever to take and prosecute that case to Donald Trump in the same way that he's bringing it and delivering it to the American people. I don't value that. I don't look forward to that. Candidly, I'm not proud of that. But the moment requires it and it's incumbent upon us, frankly, I think we're obliged, we're obligated to do it. And I hope that the American people rally around this so that we drive this type of scourge from our ranks and hopefully send such a strong message that it never comes back again.
I just want to say,
Amen
Mike,
to that.
you shouldn't feel bad about it. You should feel great about it, because what we're going to do is a public service with regard to this wretched family. And everything we do is going to be truthful. We're going to tell the truth on them. We're going to talk about how they have desecrated the highest honor that an American citizen could receive, which is the honor to live in that house at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, to be the first family, right? To be the president of the United States, the head of state of the United States of America, the commander in chief of the armed forces of the United States. The lack of dignity, the decorum, the sheer disgustingness of these people for 3.5 years. I look forward to discussing in this last month of this campaign, because everything that Donald Trump said tonight about Hunter Biden was complete and total bullshit. And another moment of profound disgrace occurred today, and that was the release of Russian disinformation by the director of national intelligence about Hillary Clinton, some bullshit plot that they invented out of whole cloth about her for Donald Trump's use in the debate tonight.
That's
the
unbelievable.
politicization of the intelligence agencies, the lack of boundaries, the intimations to violence, the encouragement to white supremacist organizations that we saw in this debate present in their totality a great danger to this country. And we should take everything this guy said seriously. We're obligated to that.
That's right. 100%, because Donald Trump doesn't joke. And you're 100% right about that, Steve. And I know that our supporters and our followers and viewers are waiting with bated breath to see what the Lincoln Project has in store in that vein. Before we go to some viewer questions and answers here, because we promised that we would, we asked people to tweet us, ask the breakdown. So we're going to definitely take some of your questions. I just want to show the clip that we have about Hunter Biden, the clip that we've been referencing for the last few minutes, because I think we have it.
Thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about
I'm
Hunter?
talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know, Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true.
And the rest of
Not
that
true.
clip is what, that's right, it's not true. And the rest of that clip is when Joe Biden comes in and looks at the camera and talks about how there are millions of American families that have gone through the heartache of drug addiction and how Hunter has overcome that and that he's proud of him. You want to say anything else, Steve, on that before we go to viewer questions?
Nope, I'm good. Let's get some questions.
All right, let's take them. What's our first viewer question? All right, a liberal hath won. I want guesses as to Trump's poll numbers nationally after this. Mike Madrid, I'm going to let you answer that, but just a word of caution. National polls don't matter. Go ahead.
You know, look, before this debate, I was one of the most strident advocates of suggesting that debates really don't matter or move public opinion. But I think Steve is right. In the intro of the first part of this show, I think this was so off the rails that you're going to see anywhere from a 4 to 5 point drop nationally in the next 72 hours, which is extremely significant. Whether that's sustainable or not, I don't know. But I think that there's going to be a visceral reaction in the country, and I think that it's going to define the rest of the 35, 36 days that we have remaining in this campaign. I don't know that you can kind of unwrite this script that has been written. And while I think that the Trump base, which troublingly I think will continue to support this, I think that there are still a good enough swath of people within the Republican base and constituency for whom this will be the last straw, or at least I hope so.
You and me both. I'll be curious to see what the swing state polls say after this, if someone's conducting them. I hope so. Next question. Why are you sober? So that we're able to do this for you. Believe me, when I worked in Capitol Hill, we used to play drinking games all the time with these things, with debates. And I mean, it was a tradition. The State of the Union and debates. There were always drinking games. And believe me, most of us were never sober by the end of them. But then again, we didn't have to go on television afterward and be sober to bring this stuff to you guys. But after this, I guarantee you, all of us are going to take a stiff drink of something alcoholic. Next question.
I think as Rick Wilson once said, we are sober because Donald Trump Jr. is not.
Oh my gosh. All right. Facts matter. Do you think there'll be another increase in donations before the end of the quarter tomorrow because of tonight's debacle? Steve, what do you think? I think so.
Yeah,
We've seen, right? We've seen an amazing amount of donations after Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. After the conventions, Joe Biden raised a historic amount of money. I think it was $360-something million. So why not after this? What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, look, I think that as people watch this, yes, right. Campaigns run on money. Send money. Send money to people that are in the fight. Send it to us, right? Send it to the Biden campaign. Send it to our friends at Priorities USA. Send it somewhere, because all these groups, all of us together, send it to Vote Vets. Send it to anybody who's in the fight, right? Because now is the finishing hour. It's time to finish these people. We've looked at the damage they've done for 3.5 years. We look at the catastrophe that's been caused in this country. Let me just say this too. My contempt for these Republican senators, literally at this hour, has never been higher, right? It's reached like its apogee. That this buffoon, this malice buffoon, is what they have sold every principle for, what they laid their integrity down for. This is the behavior they witnessed in the Oval Office. This is the behavior they witnessed in the private cloakroom meetings with Trump. This is the guy they know. This is the guy that every one of these people has refused to stand up and confront privately, publicly. And now all of these people, all of these senators, every one of them who knew that Trump lied, that he lied about how lethal COVID was, when he knew how dangerous it was. And now every one of them runs on the premise of, hey, I'm an independent voice, so I'll have your back. Get the fuck out of here. Unbelievable. Stay disgusting.
The sacred incantation of our tribe. Get the fuck out of here.
The fuck out
of here.
You know
what?
For the
exactly
record,
right.
For the record, that is one of my favorite phrases of all time. I am from Jersey, and that is part of our DNA. It's what the fuck and get the fuck out of here. So we're bonded on that. Go ahead, Rick.
I just want to echo what Steve was saying. I promise you tomorrow, you will not see a single Republican senator out there with a stirring condemnation of white supremacy or the Proud Boys. They will keep quiet. They won't condemn the fact that the president tonight once again said that he won't make a peaceful transition if the results aren't what he wants. So once again, you will see the chicken shit caucus do what they do. You will see the chicken shit caucus go out and tweet Bible verses or say something elliptical or say, oh, I don't know what Twitter is. I never saw it. What debate? Who's Donald Trump? They're going to play the same bullshit games they've been playing. This is why many of them are going to lose their seats. This did not help them tonight. This did not give them something to run on or someone to run with. This was pure chum for the Trump base. And I think it's an example once again of that disconnect between what they claim their principles are and what they actually are, because these folks do not give a shit about anything except keeping on Donald Trump's good list.
And welcome back, Rick Wilson. You emerged.
I am back. I am back. I have emerged from my other brief obligations in this world. So
back with
I do want to say, guys. I do want to say, guys. They are total bullshit. But the CNN poll apparently says that 63% declared Biden the winner and 28% Trump. The Trump troll bot army couldn't even shift that poll fast enough and large enough to show him with a win. I got to tell you, I have a suspicion the overnights are going to be absolutely brutal on this. And if you just watched Trump, if you took Biden out of this debate and just played the tape of Trump's behavior and his facial expressions and his affect tonight, it's like, would you let this guy sit next to you on a subway car? Fuck no, you would run. He's
not even in New York City.
My favorite thing tonight, I'm going to keep going back to this. This woman in a Frank Luntz focus group tonight said, I was undecided, but when I saw Trump tonight, he was acting like a crackhead. Okay. I mean,
except that he's a little overweight to be a crackhead.
Look, Tara, he could be learning. He could be a novice crackhead. He could be working. I mean, I think Don Jr. could give him some advice on this. It's my opinion, at least.
Remember?
You
Well,
missed Steve's pontifications on that earlier.
You mean the idea that Donald Trump Jr. may or may not be an aficionado of Bolivian marching powder?
Perhaps. Let's take another viewer question. We're going to take 2 more viewer questions.
An avid
before this
skier, if
goes
you will.
Right, before this goes completely off the rails since it's after midnight. Um, all right, Alistair Jones, where does this stand in the history of televised debate performances? Steve, this is just straight down the middle, fastball down the middle for you.
it is. No, it's like Mike Madrid's right about this. It's the only debate that's ever been that's just been like humiliating for the country. It's humiliating.
Yeah, sure.
Like
Yep.
it's humiliating. Like
earlier tonight, some of my Harvard students were texting with me, my student liaisons from when I was a fellow there, and they're the Gen Zers, right? They're 18 to 22 years old, and they were horrified by this, and I don't think that they're alone. I don't think that sentiment is unique to their generation. I think it spans generations, to Mike Madrid's point. So, everyone was looking at this, minus the Trump base, I think, with some despair about how the hell did we get here. I was getting text messages while we've been on air from friends of mine that I haven't talked to in years, texting me and asking me, what the hell was that? What did we just witness? How did we get here? So I think it has certainly unearthed some emotions in people who may not have been engaged before, that are certainly paying more attention to it now.
Tara,
Absolutely.
some of the saddest commentary on social media tonight was from people showing pictures of their 5th and 6th graders that had to watch this debate for a civics class and write a report on it. And I think that's why I'm just so bothered by what I saw. This is literally what they are framing their worldview on. I mean, all of us have a very powerful, emotive remembrance of our first political memory, and a lot of us chose to get into this profession and this line of work because of that, as an aspirational calling to make a difference and to do something better. There's a whole generation of kids, teenagers, young people, Harvard students who are watching this. This is the president of the United States of America, and it's a spectacle, and it is humiliating as an American, and it's angering as an American. And it reminds me again of the first time I got that phone call asking if I wanted to be involved with this effort. And immediately you say absolutely, because there's nothing more important at this moment in time. And meeting this moment for all of us, I think, requires gathering the anger and the humiliation, the sadness and the frustration, and focusing it for the next month, because the heartbreaking story of all this is there's still a third of us in this country that will take the time to go and show up and vote for this disaster.
That's
can't
for
win
sure.
with the third. Can't win with the
That's
third.
true.
God bless.
That's true.
And the bottom line is, I know for all of us, we wish these people well, but under no circumstances are we going to let them rule over us politically. They're not the majority of the country, and we're going to put this insanity in the grave.
Yep. And so,
Amen
folks,
to
it's after midnight, and normally that would be the time that Steve and I host our UFO show on LPTV. You think we're joking? We're not joking.
It's how you stay sane. That's where you get all your inspiration from. You put your tinfoil hats on, and you get it from
Wilson and Schmidt after
the
dark.
interstellars. Oh my gosh! I think that's probably a good place for us to end it tonight. Mike Madrid, thank you so much. And by the way, my first political experience was volunteering to be Geraldine Ferraro when I was 9 years old, because she was the first woman to be a vice presidential candidate, and I was so eager to volunteer to be her in a mock debate in my 4th grade class. Obviously, I didn't become a Democrat. However, I was so inspired by that as a young girl in New Jersey that I thought it was an honor to play her in a mock debate, because partisanship didn't matter there. It was about the the gravitas of the office of vice presidency and the president.
Yep.
And imagine what fourth graders are looking at this disaster and what they're thinking. It's that's a really poignant point, and I'm glad you made it. Mike Madrid, thank you so much. And Steve Schmidt, always a pleasure, always bringing the fire. Thank you so much, my friend. Back at it tomorrow. Rick Wilson,
Here we go.
thank you for coming back and joining us. I'll let you take it off. I'll let you take it home.
Well, folks, it was a terrible debate for Donald Trump. Let's just keep that in mind. He's had a terrible week. He's had a terrible month. He's had a terrible summer. He's had a terrible presidential career. We are closing in on about a month to go. Stay in the game. Stay in the fight. Stay motivated. Stay energized. Come back and see us again next time on LPTV.